news.
We got Pokemon's news. They did a Pokemon live stream, announcing some
As they
things,
do now.
and there were a number of things there. But two things we want to talk
Two big
about
things.
is one thing is Pokemon Champions coming out for Nintendo Switch and mobile.
So, I asked about this one being included because I have a lot to say about it.
Okay.
And I've had so much to say about everything, so that's a shame because I keep extending the length of the show.
Eh.
So, the announcement of this game is huge for the competitive community. So one thing that this article doesn't cover, for example, is that the trailer for Pokemon Champions shows the usage of terrestrialization, the Gen 9 gimmick ability that every Pokemon gets, and Mega Evolution in the same fight.
Yeah.
So there's an implication that they'll be merging gimmicks from different generations back in, but only in this, so that they don't have to be adding every gimmick to every game. They can go in here and they can just put the gimmick in here. The other big thing is that they've stated that they're not going to have every Pokemon on release, but once they do have every Pokemon on release, the big problem of the Dexit, where like the competitive community just doesn't have access to like Shedinja in the current format, will disappear because they just need to port in only the new game's worth of Pokemon every time. Then lastly, this feels like setting the groundwork for the things that would need to happen for them to eventually get the brand to a place where they could delay a mainline game.
Oh, thank God.
And
well,
that's why I thought this would be particularly interesting to you guys, is that we've talked before about how unrealistic I think it is for them to delay a mainline game because of all the economic things relying on it. And with the Legends series being introduced, you could theoretically start introducing new Pokemon for branding and for merchandising purposes and for new anime content via that Legends side series, which has a dedicated separate team from the mainline games. As well as the externally developed games that they've done with something like Pokemon Brilliant Diamond.
Right.
And then Pokemon Champions covers the issue that they have with competitive Pokemon. Competitive Pokemon is insanely expensive to run for Nintendo. Like, hugely expensive. I think on net it's likely profitable, but they are spending many millions of dollars on venues every year. And they fly out upwards of 100 people for every Pokemon World Championship every year.
Oof.
And they give them hotel rooms, and it's a massive expense. And things like that are paid for years in advance. They book out multiple years worth of the venue time for the venue spaces that they're going to be going to for a given world tournament or even a regional tournament or a national tournament. Those tournaments themselves are also gigantic. And the delaying of that would be really difficult. And historically, you would have to delay that if a new mainline game comes out because they have a very strict timetable for how these work. There's always a 3-year cycle. A new mainline Pokemon game has to come out every 3 years for competitive to continue functioning the way it does. So the background there being that VGC, the current competitive format, is doubles only, so it's only double battles. And ever since they started VGC, it's worked on 3 formats, 1 format every year. First is regional decks, so whatever Pokemon are in the new game and only need that new game to get, those Pokemon are allowed in competitive. Then year 2 is going to be national decks restricted, so you can use any Pokemon that you can get in the game from every game, except for the super strong legendaries. And then year 3 is national decks unrestricted. You can use one of those big
So-
legendaries in your team.
Okay.
Hey, I don't know. I might be willing to give this a shot since it's like how do you get? Have they said how you get the Pokemon in this?
It's
Like
pretty
how I
clear
would
based
acquire.
on how they've talked about home connectivity. You take the Pokemon from a Pokemon game, put it into Pokemon Home. That includes games like Pokemon Go, like it's any Pokemon game. There will
Yeah.
likely also be the system that they use for competitive Pokemon, which is a card rental system where you just grab a team. You don't have to have the Pokemon, you just grab a team that someone else has built or that you've built separately. And so it'll be you transfer them in from Pokemon Home. And this is probably going to be the competitive format.
Yeah.
This is where it will happen now.
Okay.
It's very exciting. It's very potentially exciting if they execute on it properly. It's huge.
I'm just happy that it gives them room to possibly free up making the mainline games not terrible.
There's the potential for
like,
that. Will
does
they
a
do
lot.
it? You know.
It does a lot for freedom of the mainline games. So this actually goes into a little bit what I was talking about with live service games earlier.
Oh.
That Pokemon has been plagued by an issue where there's a lot of things they want to do in the game that they can't do because it will annihilate the competitive community.
Mhm.
They like a big part of Dexit, the reason that not all the Pokemon were included in the games isn't even just development cost, it's balancing. The idea of balancing every single Pokemon out of the 1,100 plus Pokemon that exist has always been ridiculously daunting. And at a certain point, they found that they couldn't even do things in the game they thought were fun to do with certain Pokemon existing. My go-to example would be Shedinja, the one I mentioned earlier, has the ability Wonder Guard. It can't be hit by anything that isn't super effective or a weather condition or some kind of like dot damage. And if Shedinja existed in the current game, it could hold an item called the Air Balloon and could terrestrialize to the electric type. It would be impossible to hit. You could not hit it with attacks.
Good God.
So that mechanic couldn't be implemented if that Pokemon existed because it would be godlike. So it's not in the game. And there's a lot of examples of things like that throughout the series where it's the idea of doing something fun would also ruin the competitive experience that is a huge, huge scene. And so this frees them up in those mainline games to go, okay, we're gonna make this Pokemon stronger in the game, but then you transfer him into the other thing, and it works different. He works a little different in this.
Interesting.
I think that's I think that's like actually a great idea. Weirdly enough, I hope that. Oh, my hope for this is it's actually executed well. We're running short on time. The other thing is they showed ZA.
They did.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, like that seems fine. It visually still looks like trash.
It's still that.
The future, not the past.
It's it still looks like someone up-res the PS2 game.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of how it looks.
I really enjoyed seeing. Looks like you can physically move your Pokemon around to help them dodge attacks.
Yeah, that seems cool.
That's crazy.
There's a couple of cool things in there. Mega Evolution's coming back.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, you get your Clansman Gengar.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. Go look at Mega Gengar.
Well, only the shiny.
Yeah, the shiny Mega Gengar looks like he's part of the KKK.
Look, man,
it's so messed up.
Shit.
Actually,
and the thing is like I didn't even think about that until my friend Theo brought it up to me.
Yeah,
he's just like, you got Clansman Gengar over here. I'm like, I looked at it. I'm like, oh my god, I didn't think of that.
Look, man, Jesus. But yeah, coming late 2025. Looking forward to it.
Typhlosion is not one of the starters because of the allegations.
Clearly, yes. Yep.
It's the others. You had 2 Gen 2 starters and then a Gen 5, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, because the allegations.
Typhlosion's got Cyndaquil's got a lay low.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
All right. So with that in mind, what's the last news story here?
We got a last
just
news
one-
story here. I don't have a news title for this, so don't get yourself confused.
Mhm.
But